Film is a medium that transports. All I have to do is pop myself in front of the TV to watch a movie, and I can just enjoy it, whatever place the film takes me to.
Movies have always been an escape. It gives you a whole new world to be in.
I have a rekindled love affair with movies.
Welcome everyone to this episode of Reel to Reel Talk. I am Sergio Barrera, and we are excited that you once again joined us for this conversation about movie and film. Joining me as always are the other Reel to Reel talkers, Susan Chisholm and Paul Britton. Team, it is time to talk spooky movies. Today, or not today, but this week, it's Halloween. Yeah, exactly. I wasn't sure what spooky gestures to do. Yeah, so it's also time for Netflix Roulette once again, thanks to our friends from realgood.com. And this week, or this episode, is the topic is horror movies. So it's time to talk scary.
Yeah. It's very timely.
Yeah, very, very timely.
It's almost like we planned it or something.
I know. It's like, do we talk about these things? So Netflix Roulette is always fun, and I'll be the first to admit that I am not the biggest fan of horror films. What I learned this week, there's a lot out there that qualify as horror films. I know that's kind of an understatement, but for some reason I was just like, golly, this seems to be like the easiest genre of movie to make. At least that's what people seem to think. What are y'all's thoughts in terms of the horror genre?
To make a movie on horror is easy. To make a good movie that's horror, not easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. The horror genre is like it hits so many different categories, and it's the easiest, most common. I don't know. One to do a crossover where it's like, here's a funny horror and here's a sci-fi horror alien and here's a and people seem to like to get scared at movie theaters, so and when watching movies in their home, so it works and people keep going back. And
speaking of crossovers, I think there should be like a rom-com horror or something like that.
Oh, there are.
Oh, are there? Like
I Love You Deadly and stuff like that. I think that's what it's called.
Yeah, that's true. What was the one? There was a movie about, it was like a zombie movie, but he was retracting from his zombieism, his zombiness. I forget the name
Twilight?
of it. No. Already, we're not even 2 minutes in, and Paul gets the line of the episode.
Boom!
Oh my goodness, that's funny. But yeah, no, and you know the thing with and I think the point is made that horror films are, to do well, they're hard to do. And I have a feeling we might, if mine was any example, we might have discovered that in person as we spun the wheel once again at realgood.com/roulette for our Netflix Roulette episode, which we do monthly here at Reel to Reel Talk. So again, rom-com horror movies. The movie I was talking about was not Twilight, Paul. It's Warm Bodies. I'm not sure if if either of you have seen that movie.
No.
I've told you on the past, big zombie fan, but that one didn't do it for me. So anywho, so we spun the wheel at realgood.com/roulette for our Netflix Roulette episode, which we do every month at the end of each month. And thank goodness it landed on the week of Halloween, because again, our genre is horror. And so I would like to get us kicked off because, how should I put this? The movie I got, when it comes to horror films, the thing that I look for is, and this is going to seem overly simplistic, but follow me on this thought. It has to create a tension that I struggle to break. You know, there are things that can happen in movies that you can that cause tension, but you separate yourself from it. because either you know what's coming or whatever the case might be. Great horror films create the tension, and you can't find an escape until the movie plays out. That is not what happened with the film that I got when I spun the wheel on Netflix Roulette. Let me tell you the good part about this movie. The poster's really cool. But then the movie started. And so here's where I get excited about our Netflix Roulette experience. We often will spin and get movies from other countries, and I did this time. It was a movie from Thailand, 2008, and the title of the film was Train of the Dead. So immediately, Sergio's thought was,
Train to Busan.
For sure, because of the dead usually means zombies,
Yeah.
right? So Train of the Dead was interesting for the simple fact that I had to pause it several times because I couldn't stop laughing. This was not a horror film, but it was intended to be. The movie itself, let me just tell you briefly the story. And this is where I thought, man, cool concept, but yeah, it has problems. Train of the Dead is a 2008 film that tells the story of a group of robbers that they commit a heist at the beginning of the film. And in the first few minutes, they escape from the police. And their van ends up crashed into a shop where they take the shop owner hostage. And then they proceed and continue with their escape with him as a hostage, and then decide that the best possible option for escaping from the cops is to get on a train. And so now they're on a train, and the movie starts. You guys know how we often say we'll never discourage you from watching movies here at Real to Real Talk because we want you to decide for yourself. I'm going to decide for y'all. Because I don't want you to watch this movie. It was horrible. In fact, I'll just say that I'm going to spoil it. The reason they're on this train is not because they got on the train themselves. It turns out the Train of the Dead they're dead. And the train is the train that takes all of the souls that are dead to hell. And so the story plays out, and you've got everything from overacting, like ridiculously bad overacting, to this was a filmmaker who decided, I'm going to use every possible piece of media that I can put into a film, from animation, which you weren't supposed to catch that it was animation because at a certain point you could tell where the budget ran out because the train went from being real to being sort of like this cartoon animation as it went through the netherworld, but you're like, yeah, they ran out of money. And there was even a fight scene in which they obviously used wire work because it was the most ridiculous fight scene ever. Heads were chopped off, blood flowed, ghostly arms projected from the inside of a train car, and it looked like animation that Sergio, who has no skill whatsoever in special effects, could create it. Yeah, it was something. In case you're curious, they discover they're all dead, except for one of them, who's only mostly dead. Susan, that's
I'm not dead yet.
I'm getting better.
I feel happy.
Yeah. And it was just, and again, it was like what other movie making tool can I use and put into this movie? And it was just exhausting because of how hard I was laughing for so long. Cool concept, because here's the thing. The story, I had to look up Buddhism because, again, set in Thailand.
Yeah.
And the story is when you die, you're sent on this train to the underworld, or whatever it's known as in Buddhism, because if you have lived your life a certain way, then you will reincarnate. So really late in the film, if you stuck with it, you learn, oh, okay, so this person is dead forever because he's the most evil of them. But this person has a chance to reincarnate, which is why we have to fix this train that's going awry or whatever it was. And so, and then there was this one character that you're like, is she dead? Is she not? Is she kinda? And then when you think, oh, they're telling us that she's not, then it's like, no, she's dead. And we're like, okay. And then this was the kicker.
He's only mostly dead.
Right, yeah. It turns out that there's the one kid, the shop owner who was taken hostage, was only mostly dead, and so he was allowed to go back. At the very end of the movie, the part that I just was like, okay, I cannot wait to talk about this movie. There was a PSA that was flashed on the screen about how many people a year were killed by drunk drivers. It was really
It was part of the movie and not like.
But no one was drunk at any point. I mean, it's like there was driving, and there were certainly people killed by the way, because when they crashed into the, remember I told you earlier they crashed into the shop?
Yeah.
That's where they all died. Okay, you find that out late in the exposition of the film, to use your term, Paul.
Yeah.
And they do the flashback of going back to that moment, and apparently the van that they were all in, the robbers, exploded, and so that's how they all ended up on the train.
And the shopkeeper almost died in
right.
the explosion. Yeah,
he was just far enough away from the impact, and so yeah, it was interesting.
He needed to come back to Blade.
It was interesting. So yeah, and again, everything from decapitations to bullets to the forehead to, you know, one person lost an arm. Yeah, it was Train of the Dead.
Hey, shit happens.
Yeah, I got to tell you, don't rob banks and don't
crash your van into a shop store.
Yeah, exactly.
Morals.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to be seeing this one in any sort of Hall of Fame lists of movies or anything like that.
Voting on it as best train
best
of dead people.
Best,
list.
best not making sense PSA at the end of a movie moment. Yeah, it was interesting. So, Train of the Dead, and I'm not mocking Thai cinema. Don't get me wrong. I'm just mocking this example of Thai cinema.
Yes.
So, yeah. So, do we do ratings? I think we do, right?
Yeah, we do.
And if we don't, we're going to. So here on Real to Real Talk, we do a 5 taco system for movie ratings. The most a movie can get is 5 tacos, unless you really, really, really liked it and they want to add some guac. For the second time in the history of Real to Real Talk, a film will get no tacos whatsoever. For Train of the Dead, it was really bad, and if we ever do some sort of, no, we're not. We're never going to play this movie for any of our fans. So, yeah, Train of the Dead wasn't horror, but it was classified as such. So, oh my goodness. So there you go. Paul, how did the wheel treat you?
So I got an international film also, and I got a country we've never visited before also.
Oh.
As far as cinema. Very exciting. Lesson, for world travelers, here's a lesson. 911 doesn't work everywhere. You know, in other countries, you dial something other than 911.
Okay.
In Egypt, let's randomly pick. You would dial 122. And coincidence, the movie I got was from Egypt, and also coincidence, random, the title of my movie was 122. So,
I'm already excited.
Yeah, so I got an Egyptian horror movie, and I'm just going to come out and say, like, mine would definitely qualify way more as a thriller, although it's listed as a horror. And as a thriller, it would have been, you know, all right. As a horror movie, like I'm just like, okay, I feel bad because like the horror aspects of this just are lacking, but that's okay. So this actually, and I bring that up because it goes to what you said earlier, where what qualifies and classifies as a horror is it really is in the eye of the beholder, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that get classified as a horror. It's like, okay, well, I don't know, whatever, and you can do a lot of things that are horror. But anyway, I'm wasting time. So 122 is the story of a couple who are in love. They may or may not be married. It's hard to tell if they actually are married or they are planning on getting married. But if they are married, they got married on the sly, and they're definitely expecting a baby. And the woman is deaf, and the man is a former drug dealer who now sells shoes, but because they are now married and expecting a kid, he's going to do one more drug deal. And on the way to doing one more drug deal, they get in a car accident and end up in this hospital way out of the way of nowhere. And it turns out like this hospital has one primary doctor and a resident and like 2 nurses, but it's huge. Because they run through, there's a lot of running through hallways in this movie. Like just a lot of running through hallways. And you see them running through all these hallways and you're like, where the hell is this hospital that has 1 doctor, 1 resident, and 2 nurses? Like, what is going, like, no patients, but that is another weird thing. So it's at the start of the movie, they're overrun with patients and like, it's a big problem and, all these patients, but not the start of the movie, but like, once the action gets rolling. And the woman's like, where's my husband? Where's my husband? Where's my husband? And they say, I'm sorry, with your accident, nobody else was brought here. And so but they're like, there's a bus that's coming in like an hour. We need to get you out and all these other patients out now. Otherwise you're not going to be able to leave until tomorrow and blah, blah, blah. I said, okay, so fine. So she gets on the bus, gets distraught about the fact that as she's trying to call him, it's like giving with it. So she gets off the bus and walks back to the hospital. Flash back to the hospital, and it turns out the husband is in the basement of this hospital with 1 doctor, 1 resident, and a whole lot of hallways, and is about to be harvested for his organs, even though he's not dead yet, although they thought he was dead. So they thought he was dead, and then so the guy who does the harvesting of the organs like goes and gets the doctor and says, hey, this guy's not dead yet. And they're like, well, we need the money and we need the organs, so just do your job. And that's the jumping off point. There it goes. And so I get I suppose the horror aspect of it is like the harvesting of organs, I guess. Like,
from someone who's only mostly dead.
So from again, more just mostly dead people. Yes.
Right.
Like, why they're doing harvesting of organs in a hospital far, far away from everyone that has no patients and a whole lot of hallways, I don't get. I don't understand that. One of the nurses is in on the whole thing. One of the nurses is not. The doctor is in on the whole thing. The resident is not. So you can imagine what happens to the people who aren't necessarily in on the whole thing.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, so as a thriller goes, it's kind of like, okay, well, they need to, avoid the doctor and they keep trying to kill him or get away from him and find different ways. And it plays out as you would expect, pretty much. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
The thing that was really funny about this, and I think this is, I'm not going to say this was bad filmmaking. I'm just going to say I think this was just kind of for where it was made. Like, they would just randomly throw in like music jump scares where it was like you would see somebody standing there talking on the phone, and then all of a sudden the music would go bum bum bum, and the camera would cut, and there's somebody all of a sudden standing next to the person talking on the phone, and they're startled, like, oh, where did you come from, type of thing, And it just tickled me. It was so funny because there was just like they're just talking on the phone and nothing scary is happening, and there's no reason for the tension to be high right now. It's just like they're just using the musical, drop to scare people. Like,
to remind you it's a horror
yeah,
movie.
that you're supposed to be scared here. It was really funny.
My.
Like there were multiple instances of that too, where
That's funny.
they would just drop the musical bum bum bum, and like person suddenly standing next to somebody, and it's like, what? Like, okay, I guess I'm supposed to be scared there. But
Man.
yeah, I got to watch a movie from Egypt on Netflix.
Did anybody dial 122 during the movie?
Oh yeah, there was
Okay,
a
all
lot of calling of 122, and the
Okay.
the cops would come out, or like so actually that's how the woman ended up going back to the hospital, was that so the boyfriend got away from the guy that was going to harvest his organs and dialed 122
Got it.
and told the police, hey, come out. There's something really weird going on here. I'm in the basement of this hospital. And so, okay, we'll send somebody out. And then, so she called the police, and the police said, oh, we just got a 911, we just got a 122 call from that hospital.
Yeah.
And so why the police are telling her that they just got, but they needed to get her off of the bus and walk back to the hospital. So that was enough to do it. So
Gotcha.
yes, and yes.
Right. Well,
And,
we have that. Oh,
one other thing, because you
Sure.
mentioned you liked the movie poster, and I did look up your movie poster. It's funny because my movie poster makes it look like it's a movie. Makes it look like it's the new doctor drama coming to NBC this fall. It's really funny.
yeah. I looked at the poster. It's yeah. It's something. So.
Yeah.
So on our rating scale, Paul,
Yes,
how would
yes.
you where would you land on 1 2 2?
I'm gonna be nice because I'm just feeling charitable, and I'm gonna go ahead and give it 2 tacos. I mean, it's not the reality is as a horror movie, it's not, and
Yeah.
as a thriller movie, it's just kind of okay, sure,
All right.
but it definitely doesn't deserve 3, and. I'll never remember that I saw this movie, other than to be able to, if a conversation comes up of have you ever seen a movie from Egypt? And then I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, I have. That's gonna be it.
Well, you will remember it if you marked it on your Letterboxd account, and so.
I know.
All right. Well, thank you, Paul. Susan, the wheel has often been good to you. Maybe not always, but I'm excited to find out what happened this time around.
I think that my luck of getting good movies when the roulette wheel has gone fun for me. I think my luck finally ran out. The movie that I got was 77 minutes,
Lucky.
and it's 77 minutes of my life that I'm never going to get back ever again.
Oh, I thought that was the title.
No, I'm sorry. No, the title of the movie that I got was Dead Con. So
that sounds funny. I like the concept already.
It's okay. So the idea behind the movie is that there is a convention of some sort, some kind of social media, influencers convention. And all these kids are there with, their 1.5 million phones and all this stuff that happens. When you get a bunch of teenage kids around with 1,000 million cell phones. Anyway, they there's different, and if you've ever been to a convention, there's different panels, that there's a lot of people milling about, but there's also little side rooms for things going on. I say that because we're following the story of one of the influencers, whose character is, her name is Ashley, but it's AK Ashley, AKA, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
And honestly, we never find out what she is an influencer of. But you see that she's got panels and stuff like the whole story was so disjointed. Like, you start in the beginning and you find out like something happened back in 1984 at this hotel at a convention. This guy creates a computer program. It's called Link Rabbit, and it's like the precursor to like a chat room. And the guy is, he gets a phone call from his boss or whatever, and they're like, no, we're pulling the plug on this project, whatever, we don't want to do this, da 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 da. And he's, of course, I've spent my life savings on this, and he's about to pack everything up, and he's just kind of sitting there like despondent in front of his computer, and the little link pops up and says, help me find friends and I'll help you with your computer thing. And he's like, I thought you guys pulled the plug on this. And he's like, no, whatever. So you find out that we don't ever really find out what happens to the guy. We don't really find out what happens to the person we don't know who the person, we assume the person who's pinging him, his name's Bobby. And so throughout so that start part, and then you start the movie at when they're checking into the hotel, aka Ashley and her entourage are checking into this hotel. And there's no rooms. They've double booked. Okay, well, manager says, fine, we're going to put you in this super amazing suite upstairs. And, when he says, we're going to put you in this room, the checkout counter guy's like, oh, we're not supposed to put anybody in that room, Okay. Foreshadowing, I guess. So let me tell you, the movie ends up with, Bobby is a kid that was in the hotel at the time of the original convention, died somehow, and he's a ghost in that room that she's in. And it all has to do with this computer thing. And so, because they've put her in this room, they've opened the gate or whatever and unlocked, so this kid can go and basically kill all of these media influencers and put them in his computer program, Link Rabbit. Let me tell you how the story actually goes, because you don't get any of that. Nothing happens. This is all stuff that I deduced, and for a 77-minute movie, for the first 48 to 60 minutes, nothing happens. You have a story. You watch her get. She sees the symbol of the whatever, and so she turns into a zombie, and she's like, you see her kind of like, whoa, like not really zombie, but like all out of it. And she, tries to kidnap a kid so that she could bring him back to the Link Rabbit to play with Bobby, because Bobby's a little kid. And you get, every once in a while, you see this Polaroid picture that's like pops up in in the other influencers' rooms. And those are the people that are going to die next. And, one of the other, the next door neighbor is a competing influencer, and like you hear more about her story where she's like cheating on her boyfriend with another influencer, and then her boyfriend suddenly shows up, but like they made it out, just like you hear more about that story than you do about anything else.
Oh.
And guess what? She fucking gets killed.
That happens.
Okay, cool. Yeah, great. Like, so, and you have the one like veteran lobby guy who's like, I was here when Bobby was around, blah, blah, blah. And like, but literally nothing, like there's nothing that happens. They get killed. Like, so you hear this whistling sound, which is like a man whistling the theme song to his computer program. And then you, like every once in a while you'll see like a balloon floating by, and it's like a weird, like bunny shaped balloon. And that's how the boyfriend that suddenly appears out of nowhere, he gets killed because the balloon wraps around his neck and slices his throat or something. I mean, we never know. And there's like dark rooms and blood and huge shots of conventions. There's shots of these little girls running up and down the rooms and knocking on all the room doors with their cell phones and running.
Ding dong ditch.
But like, where are these kids coming? Who are these kids? Where are they coming from? What are they doing? Why are they doing this? What point does it serve in terms of the movie? Spoiler alert, it doesn't. This movie has nothing to do with itself.
That's a first.
This movie has no story. It has no plot. It has no anything. And I was like, you know what? Okay, this is what it feels like to me. What it feels like to me is these are, and you look at the cast list, and there's no familiar names whatsoever, except for one who is, and she's a minor character in this, and her name is Kylie. She's in real life a social media influencer, and she's listed as the character Kylie, played by Kylie. That's the only name. And then like one of the girl who's cheating on her boyfriend is also an in real life social media influencer. But like,
So somebody got a hold of a camera.
Somebody got a hold of $50,000 in a camera.
Exactly. And what's disappointing about the entire thing is the writer is Scott Landis, who wrote like a good portion of the Workaholics series. He was a writer on that.
Yeah.
Boy, I don't know what he was thinking. No idea, because
he wrote Ma, which was supposed to be a good movie. Wow, that's crazy.
Right. So, okay, great. So, yeah, this movie has nothing to do with anything at all. And looking into it afterwards, I was like, okay, well, maybe it was just me. I was like, I don't know. No, it doesn't. It's unrated currently on Metacritic. And the IMDb score out of 10, it has a whopping 2.8 stars.
That seems generous.
I agree. I wholeheartedly agree. Now, let me tell you something. I had this movie kind of playing in the background while I was getting ready, because I was officiating a wedding yesterday, and I was getting ready for it, and I was watching it, and I was like putting, getting dressed and stuff like this, and I was like, I had half makeup on my face. I'm like, what the fuck is that? Okay.
I feel like this movie affected you.
Yes, so that was horrible. I think it had this movie, and this movie had so much potential. The idea was good, but still really young. The name was good. The cast was pretty good too. The actors were not bad. Like, for what they were not bad. Sure. You could tell that this was definitely their first real movie type thing.
Lots of good movies have been made with people who were in their first movie. So
exactly.
Yeah.
The ball was dropped in so many ways, in so many places, that there was no chance. This movie had no chance. It had zero chance. So I want to say, I'm going to give, so my rating, I'm going to give it one taco. Actually, I'm just going to give it like the side of guac, because, and no chips to go with it either, motherfuckers. Because it had potential. Because it had potential.
Yeah, because for the title gets the guac, yeah.
I mean, and the idea was a good idea, but you just like
flesh it out.
Flesh out where you should have. You gave all of this, unimportant information and annoying and inane people. You gave them all these. I have a lot of screen time.
I have a really important question. Really important question. So when they were, and you said it was 1984, or are you making up the year? And
no, that was the year.
Okay, so they split. All right. Like, did they make any reference to Oregon Trail?
No.
What the fuck? Like, yeah, how are you doing a horror movie with computers and stuff, and you're in 1984 and you don't mention Oregon Trail? That's a mega fail.
The only thing, and this is because of my personal experience with computers, and the only thing that had anything to do with computers and Oregon Trail, and the only thing that I feel was accurate in terms of the computers.
Yeah.
They actually did have an Apple IIe.
Nice.
Which is awesome. And they had.
Then they should have had Oregon Trail. I'm sorry.
And I was like, I had an Apple IIe with Oregon Trail, like you had to have 72 different fucking floppy disk. I totally remember
Oregon
that.
Trail. Yeah.
I'm gonna put myself on a limb here for just a second. Are we talking about the same movie still?
Yes.
Because how is there a social media influencer anything if the movie was set in 1984?
No. That was the flashback.
The original.
Oh.
The original thing that happened that started the horror movie.
Got it. Okay.
In 1984.
they were in another convention, you know,
in
of
last
And that's
year.
when
basic-
Bobby.
we'll say it was basic. It was a basic programmers convention, and they
Okay.
were just showing how, look, I made my dot go this way, this way, this way, and this way, not just this way, this way, this way, this way, this way, this way, or something
Yeah.
like that. You know,
So
Like,
yes,
so-
that's how it's. I mean, that was the beginning of the movie. Is that the guy, you know, he loses his funding or whatever, and he gets. We don't know what happens to him, and then it flashes forward to.
he was
a
the designer of
convention on
Lemonade
modern day.
Stand. That's what happened to him. He went on to design Lemonade Stand.
Well,
Jeez.
it just. So yeah.
Alrighty.
How do you
think
how do you have programming going on in 1984 in a horror movie and not mention Oregon Trail? And like, God, I would hate to be like strung out somewhere and dying.
Could
Like,
it be
you gotta
copyright
make
issues?
at least a passing reference to it, right?
There was nothing. Not a
Maybe
single
maybe
F
maybe they
minus.
couldn't mention
That's-
it. Low budget movie, you know. So,
No, I
No.
think you can.
So let me tell you guys, I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say if you want to watch, I mean,
I'm not.
I almost want you to watch it so that you could be
I'm
like
not.
incensed like me. Like you could be like,
I think
I
we get
don't-
incensed enough.
Yeah,
about
I don't
other
have
stuff.
an hour and 17 minutes to kill in my life. Sorry.
I'm incensed about my movie. So so I do have to ask this before we close out our Netflix roulette conversation,
Yeah.
because when we decided to do horror films, I was actually nervous. I was like, okay, well, not a genre I tend to pick. I'm not sure that, you know, I
And-
don't
and-
know that any of us got a horror movie, to be honest. So.
Yeah, well, but no, obviously Susan did, and it wasn't put together well. But here's
Yeah.
the thing is, and I'm gonna get if we have people listening who are big horror fans, I'll take a lot of heat for this, and deservedly so. But I think it's horror movies are easily, horror and comedy movies are some of the worst movies that are ever made. Like, I think it's really easy to make a terrible horror movie, and I think it's really easy to make a terrible comedy movie. And in my experience is that most horror movies are not good. Like, and that's one of the things one of the problems I have with horror movies is that, like, most of them just suck. Like, all of those, and like, I'm not one that I'm not gonna like give sequels the benefit of the doubt because, oh, I've seen Freddy Krueger in a movie before and I might have liked a Freddy Krueger movie in the past. Like, most of those Nightmare on Elm Street movies fucking suck, are unwatchably bad. And the only reason why anyone likes them is because they have Freddy Krueger, and it's like, that's not enough for me. It's just not enough. So,
Well, they become parodies of themselves beyond a certain point. But
unself-aware too. Like,
right.
if you're becoming a parody of yourself and you're self-aware, great. That's great and fun.
Right.
But whatever.
Well,
Whatever.
so I don't know why this all of a sudden. Maybe it's just because you brought up Nightmare on Elm Street. What are your thoughts then when a reboot is done, as was done with Nightmare on Elm Street, but it takes itself seriously, and then you lose the whole, I thought it was a horrible remake because it took itself too seriously.
And you're probably hitting on Child's Play as well there, which I didn't watch the remake, and I'm not
several. Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking of.
Look, no, I mean, whatever. We can have our remake conversation later in the.
Sure, that's a great idea. Because
episode.
I got things to say about Total Recall. So. All right, well, that brings us to the conclusion of another round of Netflix Roulette. Our thanks to our friends at realgood.com for their roulette wheel. You can participate as well. Just jump over to realgood.com/roulette and give it a spin. You've got a few days left between now and Halloween, so find yourself a horror movie to laugh about. And let us know in our social media what you discovered. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram. Make sure you like us there, Real to Real Talk, and let us know your thoughts, give us comments, and participate in the process. Also, thank you so much for joining us here on YouTube. We appreciate that. Please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and click on the notification bell so you know when our episodes land. And leave us a comment and a like. We enjoy likes on our episodes, and we appreciate you watching. All right, so with that, we're going to start our weekly segments. The very first one we always do is called What the Hell Did I Just Watch? And Paul, entertain us.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to start by explaining how I found this film. So, you've asked this before. How do you find that movie? And this one was straight up. I went on Google and said list of strangest horror movies, and so I don't know if it was like Listmania or what, the 50 million other websites that just show lists of shit. So I just picked the first one, strange, weirdest, whatever it was, strangest, weirdest. And I went to number one and I was like, I know I haven't seen it because I don't really watch horror movies, and I'm just going to watch this one. And get on the international movie train, and because we're going back to Japan, kids. Honestly, I shouldn't have been surprised. Like after what was it called? The Tokyo Gore Police. Should not be surprised that we're ending up back in Japan for strange horror movies.
Yeah.
And also, interestingly enough, 1977 was a really good year for completely whacked out horror movies, because not only was Suspiria made in 1977, but an interesting little movie called House out of Japan was made. And wow, let me tell you. Yeah, this one was interesting. So
if the poster's any indication.
Yeah. Is it like the one where the house has a tongue? And is that one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
it is.
Fantastic, because that is a fantastic poster. So House is a movie about a group of like high school age Japanese girls who one of them is rich and has her own thing going on in her life. Summer vacation's about to come, and all of her friends are going to like one of their professors, one of their teachers has his fiance or somebody has a beach house that all these girls are going to be invited to, but the one who's rich was just going to go up to the mountains with her father to their villa, which is where she always spends her summers. Well, it turns out everybody's plans get ruined because the father comes back from a trip to Italy and introduces his daughter to her new mom, and now she's mad. And the teacher who was going to put the girls up on the beach house, turns out his whatever can't let the people come to her beach house, and so they're mad. So none of them get to do anything. So the rich girl says, you know what? Why don't we go visit my aunt that I haven't seen in 10 years and up in where my dead mother, she lives where my dead mother grew up, and I haven't seen her in forever. So why don't we all go there? And so they all go up into this remote village and to visit her aunt, who turns out lives in a haunted house that eats people, and she is the spirit of the house and is the one eating the people. So yay. You haven't seen a movie until you've seen a piano eat somebody. Like, I'm just going to tell you flat out. It's really funny. It's really interesting because like the girls, there's 7 of them, and they each have their own personality, and their names match their personality. Like they all have, but they're none of them are their real names. It's all like the nicknames that they give each other. But like, so the rich girl is gorgeous, and she's, there's one friend who's kung fu, and that's her personality. She's always like ready to fight. The one girl is fantasy, and she's always fantasizing. Like she fantasizes about the teacher, and so she's always imagining things. There's Melody who plays piano and stuff. You can imagine who gets eaten by the piano. There is Sweet, who does things for people and is very friendly and like, so she's cleaning the house and is and this movie is so fucking weird. I am just going to tell you, it is so weird. Like, but beyond just the conceit, Like just the filming of it is weird. There's a lot of matte paintings. But like then beyond just there's a lot of matte paintings. Then matte paintings are like really ornate and beautiful and stuff, but they're like obviously matte paintings. But then like the girls like pull in, their train pulls up and they're standing in front of what looks like a really shitty matte painting. And then like a truck moves away or something, and like or like the camera pans out, and it just turns out they're standing in front of a cardboard cutout of a shitty matte painting, and then behind that shitty matte painting is a gorgeous matte painting, but again, obviously a matte painting. And it's like, but like the cardboard cutout that they were standing in front of was in the middle of nowhere, and it's like, why is that even there? And that kind of thing happens a lot. At one point, a severed head bites somebody's butt, which I just need to mention because when a severed head bites somebody's butt, you got to bring it up. So,
Yeah.
and there's gratuitous nudity, which made me uncomfortable, quite frankly, because these were supposed to be high school girls. So,
Wow. A phrase I never imagined would be said on this show. A severed
uncomfortable
head.
gratuitous nudity, yes.
Well, that and severed head bite somebody's butt. So
Yes, both of those.
Yeah.
Because normally I am all for gratuitous nudity, but in this instance,
yeah, not so
it
much.
was like, this is
Things
not
we learn about
age
Paul.
appropriate. This is not age
Yeah.
appropriate. Like, this is why they're always college students in American horror movies, because college students you can see naked. High school students probably shouldn't be seeing them naked.
Man, I'm going to title this show just for kicks romance. So,
Yeah.
just to really fool people.
Yeah. So, but I'm telling you, like, I don't want to tell people not to watch this movie because it really is. It's a hell of a ride. It's definitely, it's really hyper stylized, much in the same way that Suspiria was hyper stylized. Very much like that, and it is wacky as shit. Like, I mean, I am not one who's done acid or would recommend people to do acid, and but I would imagine that like that would make this movie a really interesting thing. Like, I don't know, but it's
All right.
crazy.
I'll add the disclaimer in later.
Yeah.
So
don't do acid. But
yeah, exactly. We are not saying. Wow. So House, and you said it was from 1977.
1977 House. from
Yeah.
Japan.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff. Well,
Yeah.
Paul, you continue to wow and amaze us week to week.
This one was. I literally like started watching this, and I was like, I was doing laundry during it, and I was like, I have to stop doing laundry because I need to focus. This is not a movie that I had to because at one point I was like, wait, what the fuck just happened? And so I rewound. I was like, I'm putting the laundry away.
That's awesome.
I gotta pay attention. So,
oh man.
Yep.
Well, if it doesn't make you react that way, it's not fodder for what the hell did I just watch? That's for dang sure. So,
absolutely.
all right. Well, we always look forward to your contributions, Paul. Thank you as always, and we'll look forward to the next one for sure. All right. That brings us to this week's Susan Finally Saw. Susan, I'll turn it over to you. How did it go?
Okay, so I know that I said I don't normally like horror movies, and that's true. But because we're doing a spooky episode or whatever horror movie episode, I decided to keep it the theme, and I pulled one off of my list. Yes, I did. And it was not Casper the Ghost, the original. Sorry.
Oh,
Darn
wow.
it.
But the
Darn
movie
it
I
all.
saw, and I'm really happy. I mean, I finally saw The Omen, the 1976
Ooh.
That's a
The
good
Omen.
That is a good one.
Nice.
So let me tell you, I had heard of The Omen. Told a lot of people have been telling me, oh yeah, it's really spooky, it's really scary. and I just never. And honestly, like I was like, "Ugh, I don't want to watch this. I don't have any desire to watch this.
I get that.
And I did. I watched it all the way through. But have you guys? And this is a completely side tick. Have you guys ever seen Good Omens or read Good Omens by the Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett?
That is
I haven't.
perfect example of one of those things where I say I really want to watch that, but because Paul's a movie guy and not a binge watching show guy, I never get around to it. I want to see it so bad, but
So neither of you have seen or read the book.
no.
No.
Okay. I was watching this movie and I was laughing, and there are points because there are a lot of, I mean, obviously it's loosely based on The Omen.
Oh, okay. Well, now I really want to watch it. Damn it.
It is okay. Before I get into The Omen for real though, it is absolutely hilarious. It is one of the funniest books, and it's a lot of cheeky humor, and they got David Tennant and
Michael Sheen.
yeah, my brain just went. They the chemistry on screen together. If you watch them all at this, like you sit down and watch all of them through, it counts as a movie. Okay, I promise. So
It's so long.
getting into it, it's worth it.
Hours. Where do I find 7 hours in my life? Okay.
It's so worth it.
All right.
Worth it.
Calm down.
Now, The Omen.
Oh yeah, back to that.
It was okay. So, what I was actually going to watch. So there were definitely points where it was like, okay, that would normally happen, I guess. And you know, the whole idea that like, okay, so you know, if you don't know the story, it's that babies were switched at birth. Like one kid dies and they gave this you know parent another baby to raise as his own, and they named him Damien. But you find out throughout the story that Damien is actually the Antichrist, and that they've been raising the Antichrist, and they've been you know, going through everything and like the predictions, and the priests, not the same priest that switched babies, but the you know the one of the same kind of people. He's trying to atone, and he's trying to like save the lives of the parents with, you know, everything that goes on, like as he's coming of age and he's learning into his things, like stuff starts happening around him, that people are dying, and it's kind of like a little bit odd. And so his nanny is replaced by you know, a woman who's basically like to help him get his full potential as the Antichrist, sent by hell.
Yeah.
Spooky
Yeah.
Mary Poppins.
Spooky Mary Poppins, yeah. And you know, so, and in the end, he's still alive.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, very much so.
and it's creepy. I mean, okay, this movie to me was not scary. I mean, yes, I know it's probably just that it hasn't aged well in terms of its scariness and spookiness.
Okay.
There's so many other things that are spooky and scarier.
Yeah.
But there were
agree
definitely
with that.
points of
Chills? Maybe?
skin crawl. There were points of ooh. And like I was trying really hard to like make light of things, because like otherwise I get really into things, and like in into my head, and certain ideas get into my head, and it's bad for me as, you know, as a person. And so at one point I mean I busted out with it, because, you know, I was watching it, and I they were talking about like, it was when I think when the priest came to talk to the father and tell him like, this is what you need to do. You need to find this person, and because your son is Antichrist. And he's like, and you were given the child of another person, or you were given someone else's child, and he's like so intense, and the dad's like, you could tell him he's like trying to cover it up, and I'm like, I started giggling. To which I was like, what? I mean, like, who would do that, right? Like switching babies? not me. That doesn't happen, right? But in the moment,
You've switched a baby.
Hilarious. I've switched a baby.
It seems like it. No.
Yeah.
That was the idea. But I was
That's
like,
funny.
I was thinking that was the dad. It was what the dad was saying. Was he was like,
Yeah.
what? No, it wouldn't ever happen. But all in all, I mean, it's a good idea. It's a good story.
Yeah.
The different things that happen and like the photographs that are predicting people's deaths. I was like, that's really freaking cool.
Yeah.
But
See,
yeah,
and that's the
not
kind of scary I like.
I
Yeah.
did
That's
like
what
it,
I
but
like.
for me, it didn't. Maybe because I had the other story, the story of Good Omens in my head, and it was funny, and I was trying to
Yeah.
keep it funny. Like that took away some of the spookiness for me.
Okay.
Sure.
But it did still hit. It did still hit. Was like, oof, that's kind of creepy.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I
and you hit the nail on the head. You hit the nail on the head because it's 1976. Richard Donner. It's not going to age well in the this smooth cinema that we're used to now. There was a remake in 2006 of The Omen,
Okay.
which was actually pretty decent. But if you knew the story, it was like, okay, yeah, this is what's going to happen, right? It did spawn two sequels.
Yeah.
The 1976 version, the second of which I thought was great. The third one was like, yeah, we should have stopped. Because again, it continues to follow the story of the child.
Yeah.
But I find the second one far creepier, and I think I shared with you guys personal experience of being made to watch it at 8-9 years old.
That's about how old I was when I saw the first one. So yeah.
Yeah. And so in that time frame, it would have been very creepy.
Yeah.
And like, okay, so I have to ask you, because again, Susan, this is a movie I'm very familiar with. Did the music cause any sort of like discomfort? Because that's what always gets me with the Omen movies.
I mean, it definitely added to the creepy factor, but it wasn't. I guess it
just
didn't add a whole lot for me.
Okay.
Because and it's just me personally, and the way that I watch and see and hear movies is different from the way that you do. It didn't, not for me.
Yeah. And then there's of course the dogs, which is a continuing trope in the whole series.
Hellhounds.
Yeah. Oh, and I have always wondered how they got that kid to do all the stuff that he does on film in that movie, because the kid loses his shit more than once and then has that creepy smile at the end. It's like, oh, like I don't, I need to look up that actor. So
his name is Harvey Stevens. He's done a few other things, but nothing that's really
close.
insane. Let me tell you, kids do that shit. They lose their fucking mind. I mean, they can be in there on the floor screaming for some reason, maybe, or no reason at all, because they just do that shit. And then you let them alone for a minute, and then they're like, "Hey, mommy, can I have an ice cream?" And you're like, "You were just screaming." What? Oh yeah.
Well,
No,
that movie taught me not to let kids near tricycles. So. I love that movie. Oh gosh, Jen and I will always watch horror movies on Halloween, and we did all three one night just a couple of years ago, and we laughed more than we were horrified. So, all right, well, Susan, one more down on your list. Thank you so much for you sharing that with us, and we look forward to next time for. Darn sure. So that brings us to the end of Susan Finally Saw. And I'm going to let you guys know as we get into this week's Real-Time Rewind that you should remember that the movie Poltergeist is out there. Poltergeist is one of those films that for me, when I first saw it, I remember getting really sort of like uncomfortable, kind of freaked out. While I won't say it has aged well, it's still a standard in this house. We love Poltergeist. I love Poltergeist. I will be honest and say I have not seen any of the sequels because I don't want Poltergeist ruined for me. Sequels of this type are rarely successful. And so if you haven't seen Poltergeist, I encourage you to do so. We're actually going to bring it back this Halloween to watch as we enjoy Spooky Day, as we call it around here, because it's also our anniversary, weirdly enough. But yeah, so make sure you
That had
catch
to
both.
have been a planned thing, Sergio.
Oh, absolutely, because she's smart and she knows that I won't forget. So, so I married a brilliant woman. So, yeah. So make sure you, if you haven't already, catch the movie Poltergeist. It is a lot of fun, and it has its creepy moments. It has its, horror moments. You won't want to go put a pool in after you watch this movie. At least not if you're not zoned properly. So outside of that, yeah, check it out, enjoy it, and that is this week's Real Time Rewind. Want to take a moment just to remind you we're on Facebook and Instagram. Make sure you find us there. Give us a like, follow us on those mediums. That way you know what we're watching, what we're going to be talking about soon, and let us know what you're watching. What movies are you enjoying here lately? And maybe even give us some ideas of topics to talk about in the future episodes that are headed your way. Also, make sure you subscribe if you're watching here on YouTube. Click the notification bell so you know when our next episodes land week to week. And give us a like. We enjoy those likes, and we also want to hear your comments so that we can continue to improve the show as time goes on. So thank you guys.
He's nice.
Absolutely. All right, so it's time for this week's real quick reviews. We have a couple on tap. Paul, if you would, you watched one that is causing a stir.
Yes, I watched Borat's subsequent movie film. He's good. Look, the flap. The political flap is baloney. Like, and I know Sacha Baron Cohen has come out and said, "Hey, look, we know what's on film, but like in context, it's obvious what's going on." So, and yeah. I'm not a Rudy Giuliani fan, but I'm going to say he was clearly just tugging in his shirt. However, that being said, it's like if you like the first Borat movie, if you saw it, or if you like Sacha Baron Cohen in general, watch it. It has all the just hilarious, like, how are these people fucking doing this and saying this, and how is this happening type of moments, and it's fun. Like it is just another Borat movie, but it's a good one. So there you go. I don't know. I liked it.
Yeah. It's been a few years since the first one. I forget the release year of the first Borat.
2006.
Okay, so yeah, it's been a while. Interestingly enough, again, we said this last week, Sacha Baron Cohen, a wonderful actor. We talked about him last week, Trial of Chicago 7.
Right.
It's great to see that he continues to just do what he wants and has fun in his
so talented
film career. Absolutely.
I do want to say really quick, the crazy thing about this one is it's obvious that the filming of this and the planning of this had to have started before the COVID pandemic, but it just like everything that it's just like the time. It feels like there's no way they didn't start this after the pandemic, but I don't know how they would have started it after the pandemic started. But anyway, whatever. Like it's it's good times.
Absolutely, and available on Netflix if I'm not, or is it Prime?
Amazon
Prime. All right, so you can find Borat's subsequent film on Amazon Prime. On Netflix, however, you and I, Paul, saw a movie called Rebecca.
Correct.
And if you don't mind, I'm going to give you my take, and then I want you to sort of counter and see what you thought. Sure. So Rebecca starts out, Armie Hammer, first of all, one of my favorite actors. I love some of the work he's done, Social Network particularly. And Lily James are the two that star. And then, because I'm a horrible person, what is the
Kristen Scott Thomas?
Thank you, Kristen Scott Thomas, playing Miss Danvers. This movie has all the markers of this sort of mystery romance kind of stuff that I'm not usually one to run to. But when I saw the trailer for Rebecca, I was really intrigued, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna watch this. This movie takes a turn after having been very intriguing for about an hour for me. Mm-hmm. And by the end, I was like, oh, I didn't know how to feel. And I'm still not sure how to feel because the story didn't go the direction I thought it was going to. And maybe that's the mistake I made, as I assumed. Yeah. But the film itself also faltered beyond a certain point in its storytelling and also the filming. Now it's based on a novel,
Based on a
and
novel.
the work is the work, right?
Yeah.
But I felt like the movie was going really well for about the first hour, and then the twists began. They weren't what one expected, but I also felt like the filmmaking suffered for it. Stunning stunning vistas, and Manderley House was just a gorgeous thing to behold. But by the time the movie was over, I was like, okay, that really wasn't what I thought was going to happen, and I don't know that I feel as great about the movie as I did about an hour ago. So I want to hear your thoughts, Paul, and
Sure.
then we'll talk a little bit about sort of rating it.
I'm going to throw in the historical context. Not
Okay.
only is it based on a novel, but it's a remake of a Howard Alfred Hitchcock movie.
Okay.
Alfred Hitchcock made the first version of Rebecca in 1940. It's the only movie that Alfred Hitchcock ever made that won Best Picture, and it's interesting because the Alfred Hitchcock movie you're watching it, and the first hour does not feel anything like an Alfred Hitchcock movie. Just nothing like you have ever seen from Alfred Hitchcock. And then the twist happens, and it just instantly, just hard turn to the left. Wow. And it picks up, and it just slams home to the finish. And I agree with you. It's interesting because so here's the thing with the Alfred Hitchcock version. The first hour is a melodrama, and then it takes a hard turn left.
Mm-hmm.
In this retelling, the first hour is kind of like a ghost story. It feels like a ghost story.
Mm-hmm.
And then it takes a hard turn left. And I greatly prefer, just from a viewing experience, if I was just to watch the first hour of one of them, I would much rather watch the first hour of the remake. Because the melodrama of the 1940 version, it doesn't work today at all on any level. It's just, as a modern movie watcher, I'm watching it and putting on my 1940s hat and appreciating it. But if I take off my 1940s hat, it's like, wow, this is just weird. There's a lot of weirdness going on, and it's like, okay. Whereas this as a ghost story, it's really kind of compelling. But the problem becomes, and I love Lily James, and Lily James plays the new Mrs. De Winter, and I don't know if it's the writing or if it's her, but in the Alfred Hitchcock movie, the new Mrs. De Winter goes through a compelling and obvious character development, and I think that's just something that's completely lacking in this one. And that was, and so by the time you reach the twist in the original, you're buying into Mrs. De Winter just saying like, fuck all y'all, I'm taking over. Whereas in this version, when it comes time for the twist, like, I'm just not buying that this Mrs. De Winter is ready to say, fuck all y'all, I'm taking over, because she hasn't done anything to make that transition. It's tough. So,
I'm curious then. I have to ask you, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Is Danvers as big a character in the original?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, because that's what I feel. Oh, because I get what you're saying, and I wondered if maybe because it's Kristen Scott Thomas, did we overplay that role?
I will say that she is a little more forefront in this one.
Yeah.
But I think part of that is Kristen Scott Thomas, because she is so good.
Sure.
She is so good.
Absolutely.
But no, the Mrs. Danvers role is definitely a central figure in both. But that's the source of the melodrama, or one of the driving forces in the melodrama in the first one, which is, but because you kind of take the corny melodrama-ness out and make it a ghost story. In this one, it's more feeding the ghost story rather than feeding the melodrama. And I think feeding the ghost story works better than feeding the melodrama. So, but for whatever that's worth.
Yeah, I like the way you described it because it did feel like that ghost story, and that's what I was enjoying so much. And by the time the twist happened, it didn't connect to some of the emotions and the reactions I was seeing in the earlier part of the film, where I was like, okay, if this is really what happened, then why was he mad about this? That kind of thing.
And that's so, that's the thing that goes on with the Alfred Hitchcock stuff too, but. Because the twist is, it's a really interesting, great twist. I will say that, but it's just a question of which movie is ready for that twist better. And I actually do think that Armie Hammer does a really good job of preparing us for that twist and reconciling the emotions of that. But I mean, Laurence Olivier was, so Armie Hammer is stepping in for Laurence Olivier, one of the greatest actors to ever live ever. So, I mean, that there is a bit of a heavy lift there to pull that twist off. So that's all I'll say.
Absolutely. All right. So if we rate this movie, Paul, where would you land on our taco scale?
I really did enjoy the first hour. I'm doing 3 with guac. If it had held up after the twist, I would have been totally. I was riding the 4 taco train the whole time, and then it kind of fell apart like a taco might from time to time, and I was just left with the guac, and so I licked the guac off of the taco, and it was still good.
I love it. I'm going to also land at 3 solid tacos. It was a 4. About 3/4 of the way, and then I was like, okay. And so where I was left was at 3 strong tacos. Definitely recommend folks to check it out on Netflix. I'm going to go as far as to say that I need to watch the Hitchcock version, and I'm thinking, Paul, we need to put at least one of those on Susan's list. So
for free, it's free on YouTube. So like you can and no commercials. It's like the first time I've watched a YouTube movie all the way through without any commercials, and I was so happy. Yeah. Good times.
And so since we are talking about Armie Hammer, I definitely want to just throw a quick check him out in Final Portrait along with Jeffrey Rush, because a great film, wonderful film. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of this week's Real Quick Reviews. You can find out what we're watching and also what's coming out week to week. If we don't do a full review, we'll probably talk about it in Real Quick Reviews so you know what we think. So thank y'all very much. All right. Well, again, by the time this episode lands, guys, we'll be just a few days away from Halloween. So I hope that you have something fun planned. And I'm sure we all encourage folks to, whatever you plan, keep it safe. There's still a pandemic going on, and that's a horror show all of its own. And so, so Paul, Susan, as always, it's more than a pleasure. It's awesome to talk movies with you guys every week.
It is. I love it. It's good.
Absolutely. Well, it's also awesome to know that you're out there watching us and keeping up with us week to week. We thank you so much for doing that. Remember, you're awesome, you're amazing, and the world's a better place because you are in it. We'll see you next time on Real to Real Talk.